Hello, my name is Carol May Whittick, spiritual life coach and your host of Her Conversations Tools for the Awakening. Her is an acronym for Higher Energetic Resonance. This is the optimal state to embody in order to attract our highest desires. What is the awakening? This is the moment in time when humanity rises up out of the darkness. Who is awakening? Each one of us present on earth today, reclaiming our sovereignty, seeking greater possibilities in our reality and looking for solutions. We know being awakened is not a lofty ideal but a necessity. If we can transform ourselves, we can change the world. Guests on Her Conversations will speak to your spirituality, sensuality and soul. Listen to their stories and hear how they are in service to the world. Let their words and these conversations embolden and inspire you. Before we go into this week's episode and my guest Christine Samuel, I just want to share with you some of the ways that I can support you. Firstly, you can tune into Her Inspirations, which is the sister podcast to this title. And in each episode, I explore with you a different aspect of our spiritual and creative journeys. And also, if you join the mailing list, you'll receive emails with additional teaching points and resources for you to explore deeper on your own personal inquiry. Or if you're someone that has always wanted to be heard in the world, whether that means your own podcast, social media content, public speaking, or showing up in life, I've created Your Awakened Voice for you. This is a course that uses my holistic approach that acknowledges the intricate connection between your physical body, mind, and spirit. This course empowers you to discover and develop your voice. Or you may choose to work one-to-one with me. And if you know there's a purpose to your life and feel there is a purpose to your life, my purpose is to support you. And in particular, women over 40, I guide you to trust your intuition, rediscover your innate creativity, and leverage that 40, 50 years of wisdom and design your own purposeful life. The links to all of those are in the show notes below. My guest this week is Christine Samuel, an inner work coach, facilitator, author and speaker. Her work centers around guiding individuals to trust themselves more fully and develop relational intelligence. During our conversation, Christine shares more about her work, perspectives, and her book, The Heart Space: Living with Grace and Ease in an Era of Uncertainty, which is her contribution to preparing humanity for the significant shifts that are becoming more prominent in the coming years. So as always, I begin by asking my guest. Her is an acronym for Higher Energetic Resonance. When do you feel that higher energetic resonance?
When I feel higher energetic resonance is when I felt like my ego or myself is on the background. And when I feel one with my surroundings, like simple thing like walking. And what I do when I walk on the street, on my residential street, I usually try to close my eyes and just to feel what it feels like to surrender, to use a different kind of senses, to sense my steps, to sense where I am at the moment. So for me, why I like to be in that higher resonance is it feels like, like when you are surfing the waves, so you are just standing still and the wave would takes you far distance, but you don't have to do much. So that's what I feel when in the higher resonance. And also when I talk, and sometimes what I like is when I talk to others is what comes out from my mouth sometimes I didn't expect, because it's beyond me. And I love being in that resonance because that feels very connected with the whole thing instead of with just my own mind.
Thank you, Christine. And before we go further into the conversation, I just want to give you an opportunity to share a little bit about yourself, introduce yourself, and about your story and what got you to doing the work that you're doing today.
Thank you for that opportunity. So I live in Canada, but I grew up in Jakarta, Indonesia. And the place where I grew up is a bit, there's a lot of laneways. So the difference between in the west And over there is in the West, the road is always very organized, east, west, north, south. But over there, it's meandering. So when I was about 12 or 13, I loved to go through all the streets there on the laneways with my cousins or my sisters just to explore the places that I'd never been before. And then find the joy when I suddenly saw a street where, yeah, I know that street that leads me home. So I didn't know that that kind of adventure and curiosities takes me to Canada, or when I move just by alone by myself because I want to live in a different place they are different. So I left everything behind, and then I start my career in Canada. And 3 years ago, I also left everything behind, left my career of 20 years as user experience design and start journeying my heart path. Because what I felt is something in me felt there's something out there. I always felt there's something out there that I need to explore, that I need to find out the pattern, that I need to feel the sense of awe and wonder of not knowing. So it's been 3 years, and what I've been doing is after 20 years of career where in corporate world is everything you do, there's methodology, there's always processes, and your clients basically buy certainty because you know the methodology, you have the experience doing what you do. So at work, I always know 10 steps ahead. I always know the outcome, what I want. But in this kind of journey where you kind of doing your self-discovery and what life is about for you, or at least for me, there's no roadmap. The roadmap is very different. It's like open space. So 3 years ago, when I left my career, I knew I'm going to feel fear of the unknown because I tried it before, but I came back because it was so scary. So I knew what I gonna stumble upon. So I asked myself questions. So what do you do when you realize the path you've taken no longer serve you? And how can you find a solid footing when navigating the turbulent waters of transitions? When I left my work, the fear of not making enough money, the fear of, is this the right thing to do? The fear of, am I doing the right thing? It's all come up. It's all become even more scary. So what I did is I used 3 years as an experiment for myself because I know this is what the world are happening. The world are experiencing right now because of COVID, and there will be a lot of more transitions in the future. So what I did is I faced my fear just head on. And at the same time, I write a book. The book is about the heart space, living with grace and ease in an era of uncertainty. And I'm using my experience as writing the book, as going to the unknown, as way of practicing what it means to live from the heart. So that's basically where I'm here now. And it's amazing when you follow your heart, when you really face your fear, you see what's behind it. It's nothing scary. So when you pass that fear, oh, this is not scary at all. During COVID, what happened was, I never felt I have enough money, even though I make, 5 figures. And then with COVID, I thought, hey, I don't really need to spend a lot of money. I don't need to go to restaurants. So it's okay. So that basically gave me a courage to left my job because, hey, things that I was worried about was not that scary at all. So I keep building that resistance. I keep building that capacity to bring fear and face it. And I did a lot of body of work. I facilitate deep listening circles for the last 3 years now. I study coaching. I experiment with, I call it we space, is where we get together for one another, be present, and speak from our heart rather than from our mind. So I really go down and through the unknown and learn what it means to work together in a more feminine way of working, more open way of receiving and listening to others. And the amazing things what happened was I stumbled upon what it called relational intelligence, which similar to what my heart calling writing as well, that we all interconnected. And the intelligence or insights doesn't come from, my brain, but come from the middle, the center. When we speak to one another with really open to listen to the present moment, what's emerging, a new idea, a new insight come in. And I feel like that's how I can write my book, because I'm out there not knowing, and I'm listening to others, and their perspective give me a new ideas and enrich my understanding about about most thing in life. Basically, it's a process of unlearning, and therefore this is my work. I want to bring the heart space into our collective, our consciousness, because in this lifetime that we have now, where the old crumble, the new arise, we need a space to be able to, that has a bigger capacity to hold our discomfort as we mourn the old and embrace the new, which is scary. How can we embrace both so that new things arise, not from what we know? Because our intellect actually comes from what we know. Everything that comes from our brain at this moment is all come from what we know in the past. So we need a way of navigating the unknown and allowing a new, fresh insight, a new way of being to be born in each of us, because the change comes from inside, not from outside.
Wow, beautiful introduction. Thank you, Christine. There's so much to kind of touch on through what you said. One of the first things that I was thinking to ask you as you were speaking was, you said you'd stepped away from your corporate security before, and then you went back, but then this other time you stayed. What were if you were to see, okay, this is the reason why I saw it through the second time around, what was it that you allowed the second time that actually made you go, do you know what, this is actually what I'm going to do? I'm walking away from, like you said, the method, the certainty of the corporate structure that I know I speak to many people within that structure who want and desire that certainty, and it keeps them secure. But then ultimately for many that I then speak to as a coach or potential coach for them, that certainty then becomes very stifling to them. No, it's like, they can map out, they've been in a career for 10, 15, 20 years and can pretty much phone it in and get paid really well for it. But then the challenge of there's no challenge there, because that something so well that it's automatic. Everyone respects you. You get all the accolades, you get the financial rewards, but it's like, is this it? But then there's that, but if you step away, then can I, like you say, can you take a dip with money? And I know many will struggle with the idea that if you don't have a certain amount, that it's all going to fall to bits. But you realize, as somebody who has lost many things many times and had to start over, when you've got not much, you realize that you don't actually need much to at least maintain, before then you kind of realign yourself and get on track, and then the income comes in on its own in a much different way, in a much easeful way, but with the lack of certainty, which I can see if you're used to that and that's been your life, to then move away from that feels it's borderless, it's boundless, it's anchorless even. It seems foolish, even though it's keeping you tight. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great questions. I think the difference was when long time ago when I wanted to get out from the corporate world is because I was looking from the outside. I was looking for a way out that I thought it's outside. Like, I want to have freedom. I want to do my own thing. I want to, be able to do this and that. So it's always about the outside. And I remember when I did that, what I was looking is finding strategy, proven strategy, right? There's a lot of courses, a lot of people already done it, making, a lot of money, and they sell their course, they sell their methodology, proof point that everyone can just put in. And I knew it. I knew I could not go that approach anymore because I did it. I even paid a lot of money, and it didn't work because it's their methodology. It's not my methodology, because they can come out with that 5 steps that seems so easy because they gone through all the failures to be able to subtract that for us. So we actually have to go through that ourselves. What I found better this time is I don't look for, it's more about inner exploration rather than finding way out there, finding like a better medicine out there. But it's more like, for me, I felt this is the part in my life where I want to explore within. How far can I go? Not how far can I go, how far can I get something out there, but how far I can be myself and be open to everything that I've been shutting down, right? The thing about, I remember the last year I was in this corporation is like, I was kind of thrown into this group or business unit, and which I didn't choose to be there. And everything about me or about my performance is everything they tailored. Like they said, if you do this and that, you are high performers. But so we are so used to fitting ourselves into a puzzle piece that others need to fit into their, the whole picture. But for me, my way of this time is like, no, I don't want to fit into that puzzle piece. I want to know myself, how far I go, what make me, what light me up, and how do I speak in a way that is unique for me. Because I felt if I just can be myself, that's enough to change the world, because we need some examples. We don't need more teaching. We don't need more, way to do things. We just need to see more examples, because if I don't want, I'm, just this me, I'm introvert, I'm had a lot of insecurity before. I'm nobody can do it. Why, other people can, I can do it too, right? It's not just the bright, amazing people out there that can do. We all can do. So for me, this time is more about really looking what is want to come up. So I'm ready for that. And I found the more I get into it, the more amazing is the journey, because I'm finding certainty inside. So the thing about certainty, and like we are very wired to looking for predictabilities, like in the world right now, right? So if I want to go somewhere, I go to Google Map. and I know exactly the fastest way to go there, how long it takes, and where to go. I can even look at the pictures of the street that I never been before. But life is not like that, right? So it's great to be in predictable, but there's nothing new. There's nothing exciting. That's why I think, and human are built where, when you have a perfume, for example, if you wear a perfume, in the beginning, it's like, oh, I really love this smell. And then after 3 months, you're wearing every day, you don't smell it anymore, right? We get used to it. So the same thing with our work, with everything in our life. It's amazing. Like every day we do the same thing. We walk every day. We meet the same person every day. We go to work and do the same thing every day. Even people who get paid a lot of money, they get paid because they do the same thing every day. That's why they're very good in what they're doing. So imagine if the world are so used to doing the same thing every day, being able to predict where they're gonna go the next day or the next year or the next 3 months or vacation, all the route are planned. Like it's gonna be scary to be in not knowing. And I really want to show the world, because I found we need to learn to be in uncertainty because the world are changing so fast, not just with technology, the AI and everything, but like with the shift in earth poles, like everything changing. So if we are not used to start being accepting the unknown, we going to have problem through the future, because if we don't do that, what we're doing is we live through fear. The predictability, being in the certainty, doing the same thing every day is our way to have control. If we know exactly, we know how to handle it, right? So when things are in the external world is unpredictable, uncertain, and you don't have control of it, what happens is we're going to be so fearful to face that. And that's going to happen anyway. So how can we start finding predictability and certainty within and control within ourselves? Therefore, when we feel certain, when we have trust in ourselves, whatever happened outside, it's not that, well, it's going to affect us, of course, but it's not going to throw us so far away.
Yeah, beautiful. And I think you kind of said it, but I want to expand on this place, on this spot with you as well. The idea that if the external is shifting, and my thoughts on the world are, because people tend to look for stability on the external and predictability and patterns and tradition and culture on the external, then everything's okay, because then one, you don't need to have that internal connection, because as long as this happens on a Tuesday and that's happens then, and like as long as these patterns continue, then it's all good. But like you said, there is a shift happening. There has to be a shift happening, and like with every age there'll be a period of time where everything looks the same, or the shifting is kind of slow. So it's slow enough to look like there's no change. It's slow enough to look like there is a constant there, but the constant is that the change is moving at a slower rate. But we've kind of got, I don't know whether to the end of the cog or however it is, but we've kind of got to the end of the constancy, where we're going into the shift and the change, where all of the old stuff is falling away now, and it's not yet being replaced or fully realized. And I think that opens up a great opportunity for the people who see the space to step into the space and create something new where we're just like, okay, what we came out of didn't really serve people in the long term. What can we create that's actually going to help everyone have a better time of it? And the main thing is pulling away from the external, because the external is shifting, and because we do always need to have certainty. Go to the place where the certainty is, and the certainty has always been within. But that's a new space. For the majority, it's like, what do you mean within? It's like that voice that's been telling you to maybe step away from that thing that you've been holding on to for 20 or 30 years. Has always been there, even though you've ignored it. That's been your constant as everything else shifts. So if you pull into yourself, that constant voice has never left you, or it's just kind of sat patiently by for, a couple of decades while you figured it out. You got to the point where you just really can't take it anymore and have stepped into the uncertainty. In my own experience, I would say what will look very chaotic and uncertain from an observing eye of the way that I'm doing things, from me internally, is actually very stable because I'm going after a goal. But what happens is when you're going after a goal that's very new and untried, you're going to have to fail a lot. So from the external, it's just going to look like she didn't know what she's doing. She's just like messing up all the time. It's like, well, no, like I say, like you said about buying people's courses and programs about the strategy, the only way that I can find my own strategy is just to go for what I am seeing is for me, and much of what is going to come my way is not going to be right for me. So it's going to look like a lot of failure. It's going to look really messy. It's going to look like I don't know what I'm doing. All I know, sometimes the only certainty that I've ever had is this isn't right, this isn't right, this isn't right, this isn't right. That's the only certainty that I've had. And it just looks like a mess from the outside, especially from someone who's very practical and realistic and process and strategy based. And then I look at that and going, but I know that that's not mine. I just know that I have to go this way and just like fail a lot. and hopefully not let the voice of people who are telling me that what you're doing is not working override the stability that I have with the core and the voice that's telling me just keep going this way and just don't give up. As long as you don't give up, something will figure itself out. And it's all of the bits that fall off that will eventually hone into my own 5-point plan, or whatever that's going to be when it when it becomes what it becomes. And I can say with certainty that in hindsight, I can see how all of these perceived failures and mistakes, there was always something to learn from those things. So there was always a lesson to be learned. There was always a sharpening of my own trajectory because of going, oh, it's not that. But I never came away from anything, any perceived failure, without an additional bit of knowledge. I never just walked away and went, there was nothing there. There was something there. It's just that I didn't, wear the badge of that being the thing that worked for me. But this is this is not an easy road to take, especially when everyone goes the other way. There's no direct certainty. There's no that it's going to happen at this point. It probably takes way longer. There's like way more ups and downs. But there's something way more interesting in moving towards that. And there's way more knowing of yourself the longer you stick with it. That's been my experience.
I love what you're saying, and I want to add on that because I think that is an experience that every one of us having. And the more people are thinking about what is my life for, where I'm here for, and the more they're looking for a different way of achieving different goals. And what you're saying is a process of both learning and discovery, right? Learning because we never done it before, so we have to learn like a child learning to walk and fall again and again. But at the same time, it's a discovery process because the difference within learning is learn is like something you earn, right? There's earn word in learning. So something that you don't have, then you earn it because you learn it. Discovery, it's the idea of it's already there. You just uncover it. And the process of what you just said is learning about the skill or about what, to achieve that goal. But also you are discovering who you are. You are knowing more of you in the way of overcoming those challenges. And that's a process that every one of us going to experience, because this is the thing, right? You go to school, you learn something, and you learn all the methodology, and you work on that, graduate, and you have that skill. So it's pretty like in a petri dish, like in a lab, right? So everything is kind of clean. You just do that. But in life, when you do something different, it's totally a different thing. So that's why I introduced the notions of the heart space. And this is what we need to do, be more in the heart space or in the head space. Head space try to analyze, plan things, make it right? Very narrow focus on something. And then always try to compare. Is it good enough or is it not right, good, right? So it's just like a very narrow focus driven. But the heart space, in my book, I said the heart space is a gentle holding space where all feelings, thoughts, sensation are welcome. It's a space where we can have a loving relationship with our complexity and contradiction. No pushing, no pulling, just is. With a deliberate, gentle holding, a different kind of intelligence and clarity emerges. Through this experience, we finally understand from the core of our being, in the relationship with ourselves, others, and the planet, that we are enough, whole, and always interconnected. So the ideas of, like you're saying about, I'm failing, I do this and it doesn't work, and then I find my own strategy. That is when we have to sit down with all our feelings, our judgment, and at the same time, our what next to do. We all have to sit in those. And what we're trying to do usually with our head is like, okay, what else? Why does it fail? We create a story. But when we sit a little bit longer and have capacity to hold it a little bit longer, there's a new insight, a different kind of intelligence emerges, right? Because sometimes what we see is a problem is not a problem at all, but because we haven't had time to comprehend it yet. We haven't let time to sit with it. So we get more understanding, but we just react and act right away to do something and to solve it, but it's not. So for me, it's like, let's have that space where we sit with our uncomfortable feelings, with our anxiety, wanting to know everything or trying to figure out. Sit with that, because that's a part of us that we all use so much in this lifetime, in this culture right now. We need space to be able to handle that, because when we be able to handle all the contradictions, all the feelings that we have, the failure, the judgment, at the same time also creativity and ideas, we can handle it within ourselves. We can be open more to others, to allow the differences between all of us. Because the thing about the differences is, this is the thing about the world right now, right? Let's say I'm talking about empathy right now, or you talk about empathy, or we talk about, let's say, philosophy or something. My concept or your concept about empathy is not empathy. Your concept about God is not God. Your concept about diversity, inclusion is not diversity or inclusion. Only when we live in it, that becomes us. So we talk so much about, this opinion, that opinion. We talk about, the war in Middle East, who's right, who's wrong. It's just about talk. It's not the truth. Everyone can have their opinion. But the question we need to ask ourselves, how do you create peace in yourself? Have you solved the war within you first before you talk about who's to blame and what to do and how to solve the outside? Solve what is the inside. And then we have bigger space to allow others to speak, to be different than us.
There's something that you said when you were just taking that passage from your book. One, it kind of caught my ear, one, because I like alliteration, as a writer, but the complexity and contradiction. And I think that's probably in this world where it's like the box ticking, it's like, where do you fit? It's like, are you A, B, C, or D, or do you stand for this or that? And there seems to be no, there hasn't been an overall allowing for people to be a bit of this or a bit of that, or none of the things, and actually have a space within there, and then also for people to discover that they are in neither. They're not this, they're not that, they're somewhere in the middle, or in talking about the complexity of it, that you may actually, or the contradiction of it rather, that maybe today this is where you feel, and then you have an awakening with yourself and go, actually no, I'm not about that at all. And then have the courage to actually go, you know what, guys, this is, especially in the midst of conversation, because usually the only reason I believe that we would take a stance on something is to then have a stake in the ground, particularly if we're kind of having a discussion or we're within a group. It's like, who are you? Where do you stand for? And you're like, I'm these things, and you kind of plug into the drip, 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 and I'm all of these things, in a very kind of like digital way, like you're on, your switch is on or it's off. It's like it cannot be, halfway, or else there's no signal. Whereas you're like, well, maybe I'm a bit of this, or maybe I'm changing as the world is changing. I'm becoming something different, and I'm allowing myself to be that and not judge myself for changing my own mind, because I think that's where a lot of people struggle, is when they feel themselves changing, then not necessarily allowing themselves to change, or berating themselves for not having like a solid view, and not seeing the beauty of the fluidity of allowing yourself to meander with the complexity, which is life in itself. There's always this element of flow, and but it's uncertain. It's not, I can't say who I'm going to be in a month's time. I know that I have so many things to do this month that are really going to put me in spaces that are going to push me again to the edge of what's comfortable for me. And every time I do another one of those, it's going to kind of like elevate or shift what my own self-concept is, let alone anyone else's concept of me. So allowing that to always be changing. But that in itself as well is, I don't know how, as we go into the future, and especially when we're looking at education, how we get educated, to start to educate ourselves as, from the cradle, but also as adults, to allow ourselves to meander and to mold and to be different people, and also be able to I don't want to use the word defend, but just to be able to stand strong in the face of people who will go, well, last week you said that's not who you were before, and be firm in your own complexity and your own shifting. Do you see what I mean? It's like, in itself it sounds like a contradiction, but being steadfast in the movement of who you are.
I like what you're saying, because and this is something that I also find, and I wrote in my book, because our identity is not fixed, right? Like, this is the thing, after 20 years or 15 years, oh, we probably have this idea, so I'm Black, I'm Asian, I'm I'm white, and of course you cannot change your skin color, but actually our identity is relational. What I mean is we are actually shape shifting all the time. So like relying on our fixed identity is not the way to go anymore. Of course, if you cannot change your skin color, but the thing is, like, this is what interesting. I think you can see this phenomena, right? It's relational because my identity is not just my own. My identity is depending to who I speak to. With my children, I'm a mother. With my coaching client, I'm a coach. With if as a writer or author, people who write the book, people who read my book, I'm an author. As we are talking as a podcaster and a guest, a host and a guest. But every time I talk, every time we show up, and we don't never show up by ourselves, we show up for others, with others, it's always changing. And also our collective identity change. For example, Toronto, I live in Toronto. Toronto is one of diverse. There's so many from different countries. So in one neighborhood, let's say it's a little Portugal. Within a World Cup, the people who are not Portugal will feel they're Portuguese, or the people who have Portuguese, been here as Canadian, born here, they are so proud of being Portuguese and go as if they are Portugal when Portugal won World Cup, and then the next day there's a hockey game, right? And they proudly become Canadian because our hockey team is there, or people in Calgary when Toronto Raptor basket team won, like Canada. It's like we change our identity so fluidly. Why do we have to be so fixed on who we are? Because it's like if I go on vacation and I tell a story, if you my like close friends, I would I would very detailed telling the story about it. But not with my coworkers, right? Like, yeah. So even to whom we talk to, we are very depending on relation. So if we think, and also, for example, if someone know your name, you introduce your name. Hi, I'm Carol. Carol. Knowing your name doesn't mean they know everything about you. And even me, I feel like I born, like I'm living this body for decades. I actually don't know other parts of me still yet, because we are not fixed. We are evolving, we are expanding, and we are not fixed because we not isolated. It's not just Christine, but Christine live with her family, her kids influence her, what she read influence her. Carol, you influence me. As we talk, there's something that I'm not the same person anymore. You are not the same person before we start these discussions. We all changing. And if we can see, just be free and fluid, as what you said, because we are evolving creatures, right? And this, I wanna tell a story, which I wrote in my book as well. This is the interesting about the indigenous languages, especially. I mean, I don't know the whole indigenous in the world, but like in North America. So in English language, right? So if you say a chair, it's a chair. It's a fixed thing, right? It just, when you say a chair, or it's never changed or anything, because it's just fixed. And in most European country, there's a feminine, masculine, or neutral for a noun. But in the indigenous culture, for example, a tree, noun is not dead, it's not fixed. A noun is animated. They split it into two, animated and inanimated. So, for example, a tree is animated. It means that it's a spirit being. It's not dead. It's not fixed. So there's a different thing because most people speak English. The idea of like a chair cannot be a different thing. A chair cannot be a desk. A chair is a chair. But if you can see a language where a noun is a living being evolving, Carol is not just Carol, fixed Carol. Christine is not just fixed Christine. Christine is evolving. Like the tree, for example, when they say the tree or a lake, what they say is not just a fixed lake. They say a lake that evolving and different every seasons, changing every season. A tree is a tree that changing every seasons. They see that as a living something alive and changing. And I think we need to adopt that awareness, consciousness, especially to see each of us not as a fixed Christine living in Toronto or Carol, Castor, whatever it is. We are changing and always changing. And we can respect that, that part of us that is always changing and be with it and be open to it. As, like you cannot let a plant, I just want to leave it like that. I don't want to let it grow. It's a plastic plant. But we allow plant to flowers, to have different flowers. Or we don't say like you have flowers only on the 5 centimeters from the floor. Don't go. We don't do that. We allow it to flowers. We allow it to put the flowers down during winters and come back again. We allow tree to be a tree. Why don't we allow us to be us that is changing and evolving every time as we grow older, as we expand our perspective, as we have a different experiences, good and bad. Why can't we allow ourselves to grow and evolving? And to me, that's the needs of loving ourselves and accepting ourselves even more.
But you know what? Because I wrote down here as well 2 words, brittle, vulnerable, when you were speaking before, because I wanted to speak to those of if we take on an identity, and maybe in particular when we take on a societal identity and we cling to that identity come hell or high water, you're just holding on for dear life. You're holding on to it even though that thing is just unshaky ground. You become vulnerable if you identify and choose never to not identify with this one thing. Because then also if you identify with something, then there's a societal characteristic that's placed around it, and you buy into it more and more. Then on the day that gets demonized or attacked or anything like that, then you fall down with it if you're holding steadfast to that being your identity. No, and I think that's how identity of all sorts, box ticking and box filling of all sorts, leaves people vulnerable, leaves people emotionally manipulated, because they've identified with an external idea of who they are based on some box that they've kind of shoved themselves into, and then will fall down when that is the thing to be or not to be, or the thing that is perceived as being the most under attack or the most misunderstood, or whichever way they want to slice the pie. And it's coming back away from those things. And like I said, there are certain things that are not changeable about us, physical appearance, skin color, and all of these things. But within us, we are so many. We're so many, like you said, the person that you are when you're with your children versus the person that you are now, and the conversation that we have, and who you might have other conversations with. I think of the myriad of conversations that I have with people from different parts of the world, and some aspects of my formed identity, that my societal formed identity just is irrelevant to the conversation when I'm meeting other people, because we're meeting at the point of fluidity and the point of similarity where we can connect on that level. And in that space of meeting people and finding, to use your phrase, the heart space to connect with, it then gives you so much room to explore new people, to find new people, to find out who you are and how much there is of you outside of this box that you've been shoved into. Because if I just went around and decided that I was only going to align with people who check this box, it would keep me very limited, because then I'd be aligning with people who checked boxes as well. So already you're going into a narrow space. But if we go, yeah, there are these boxes, but then outside of the boxes, where are the commonalities? Where's the room for us to discover who each other is and how much more of myself there is? And I think that's the part that, this is one of the things that I really want to find words to communicate, because it's one of those things that when people are so aligned with their identity, don't want to hear anything other than you speaking to their identity, where I'm saying, like, there is so much more to you outside of the identity that you're keeping yourself narrowed to. As long as you keep aligning with that and aligning with people, then your experience will be very, very narrow, because you'll be having a circular conversation, because you'll all be going, well, people who are not in the box think like this and think that we're like this. Whereas if you go and let's play from the heart and see what else is going on, you'll realize that the boxes, these flimsy barriers that we place around ourselves, have nothing to do with who we are as souls, and there's so much more that can be had on so many levels. But I thank you for kind of bringing your work in, because that's really defined some language for me that I've been really working on, how to communicate this, because I know it's a conversation that I want to have, and I feel it in my heart more and more that this is a pressing thing to talk about. But when you're talking to people who are still locked in their boxes, you have to kind of gently ease yourself into the conversation and use words that won't shake them out of it just yet, because they're still there holding in. But it's kind of opened some things up for me. So thank you for that.
You're welcome, Carol. I love your words, fluidity. The fluidities to discover who we are. And it's interesting, I think, to know who we are, people can helping us finding who we are. Because this is the thing, when you try to clap with one hand, you can't. You need the other side to clap. And that's how I think we will find who we are, through the mirror of others. And you'll what I love about you saying is, we always can find commonalities, something common in each of us, because we are human, human family. And the diversity or the differences with our opinions or perspective is great for conversation, because imagine if we all have the same opinion, it's boring.
Right.
It's boring. So that's what make relationship interesting, when we have something in common, and also when we have differences.
It's been so good to speak to you. Have you got any closing words, or just something you want to leave us with about your book?
I just want to put this again, the questions I ask myself, and part of the book, and I'm pretty sure it's a question that we need to ask ourselves as well. How can we find solid ground when navigating turbulent waters of transitions? And there's a couple of things that we need to change. Basically, navigating uncertainty calls for a different way of knowing, a different kind of knowing, which is our inner knowing ourselves. Creating deep connection with ourselves and others demand a different kind of listening. We need to start receiving as we listen, not trying to form an opinion or ideas before we finish listening. Listen to understand, listen by being curious. So cultivating a fresh perspective requires us to find a new way of relating to the world. How can we relate? Not because finding all the difference, finding all the things that goes wrong. Can we find something in common? Because we all feel, we all have experience. We may have different opinion, but we have similar experience. We feel sad, we feel broken, we feel frustrated, we feel disappointed, we feel angry. We all have feelings. And if we genuinely want to create a better world, we must fundamentally shift our way of being. And achieving these objectives require nurturing steadfast inner trust and a sense of safety that isn't contingent on external circumstances. That's why the heart space is the most fertile ground to nurture this quality. So we don't need other things. We already have it within. Thank you, Carol.
Yeah,
Thank you so much for having me in your podcast and having this amazing conversation. And bless you for all your work on bringing new level of awareness and consciousness with different guesses, because that's what we need: different point of view, diverse opinions, so we can have a better understanding of what we see. Because it's only my perspective, but when I hear from you, my perspective expands.
Let everybody know where they can find you, please.
You can find me on my website, christinesamuel.ca. My book will be launched on April 20th, 2024, but I give away a free chapter that you can download through that website. Or, find me on Instagram at Christine Samuel here, or LinkedIn. And yeah.
Beautiful. It's been so good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Christine, for sharing with me, and thank you all for listening. Find out more about me on my website. That's carolmaywhittick.com, carolmaywhittick.com. On LinkedIn and on Facebook, I'm Carol May Whittick, and Kazmic, Cazmick, on Instagram. Until the next episode, take care. Have a good one.